Hello and welcome to Sharp Knife Shop. My name is Gage and I'm excited to have you with me for another episode of Battle of the Blades. In today's episode, we will be battling bunkas, more specifically the Minamo Bunka from Kato-san, the Hayabusa Bunka from Hatsukokoro, and the VG10 Damascus Bunka from Nigara Hamono. We'll get into specs and hand feel right now, and then we'll start chopping stuff, so let's get to it. First knife we're gonna look at is the 170mm Bunka from Yoshimi Kato's Minamo line, made from R2 or SG2 stainless steel with this beautiful Tsuchime pattern on it. It's got an olive wood handle on it, mono, so meaning it's got no ferrule on it, as is the case with all three knives today. Look at that, we didn't even plan it. Balance point on this bad boy is right about where you would expect it to come in, just about where the pinch grip is going to happen, maybe a little further into the handle than I would deem normal for a Japanese knife. But overall, this guy's quite light, has a great hand feel. Spine is very nicely sanded, choil is very nicely sanded, thin at the spine, very thin behind the edge, and like I said already, very light overall. Gorgeous looking knife. I'm a huge fan of the mono style handles, so excited to test this guy out. Next knife we're looking at is the Hatsukokoro Hayabusa series. This guy is made from Algami Super and has a stainless cladding. This is the only carbon steel knife that we're going to be looking at today. Stainless cladding comes very close to the edge of the knife here. Very light overall is this guy. Balance point is right about here. Basically the exact same spot as on the Minamo. Similarly as well, the spine is nicely sanded, choil is nicely sanded. This guy's even thinner at the spine. I would say pretty similar in terms of thinness behind the edge here. It's got a nice, very clean Megaki polish finish on it. Bubinga handle, fun word to say, a mono style as well, so no ferrule on it. Octagonal in shape, as are all of these guys, I should say as well, so suitable for righties and lefties. Even lighter than the Minamo overall. It's 180mm, so slightly longer. One thing I failed to talk about on the Minamo is the blade profile. So this guy is not super curvy, but not super flat. The Hayabusa, same. Maybe a touch flatter, but very similar. Last but certainly not least is the 165mm Bunka from Nigara Hamono's VG10 Tsuchime Damascus line. This guy is probably the flashiest of the three that we're gonna look at today, followed closely by the Minamo here. It's got the most aggressively shaped K-tip on it. It's also probably got the most belly to it, so it's one of the curvier of the three we're gonna look at today. Balance point on this guy is right back here, so maybe a little further back than I would say is like my preference, but it still feels very, very nice in the hand. Spine is not quite as nicely sanded. Choil actually is quite nicely sanded as well, but not super noticeable. It's not like sharp by any means, and it feels really good in the hand. Ebony mono handle on it, really beautiful handle, octagonal in shape, so suitable for righties and lefties. Probably the thickest of the three at the spine, but not by much. Very similar, maybe just a touch thicker. And then edge geometry is pretty similar to the other two that we're looking at today as well. So I think we're gonna have a close race today, you guys. Let's get into some chopping. Carat test. All three of these knives perform super well, but let's start by talking about the Minamo. I cannot think of anything bad to say about this knife in terms of the carat test. The only one little thing I may say was when we were rocking over 2 carats at the same time, got a little tough with this guy, likely just due to its length. Obviously, knives this length are generally not used for that sort of task, so can't really fault it there. In terms of like the tip doing our rounds and the heel doing our rounds, effortless. Taking a large chunk of the carrot off like nothing was there, and when we were cutting the carrot in half lengthwise, similar feeling, just like a knife through butter. The Nigara performs super well also. The tip on this guy is absolutely deadly. When we were doing our rounds with the tip, performed super well. Heel with our rounds was super nice also. Similar sort of issue with this guy to the Minamo when we were rocking over 2 halves of the carrot at the same time. Wasn't ideal, but again, just due to the length. When we were chopping our large chunk, performed really well, not quite to the level of the Minamo, and we were cutting it in half, again, performed really well, not quite to the level of the Minamo. overall, fantastic. Last but certainly not least was the Hayabusa. Tip on this guy was not awesome, I found. It felt really nice, but we were finding there was like little crackage happening at the little bottom part of the carrot. However, when we were doing the rounds with the heel of the knife, I felt this guy performed the best. When we were taking the large chunk, this guy performed really well. Halve lengthwise, this guy performed super well. And then this guy also outperformed the other two knives when we were rocking over the two halves of carrot. I would attribute that largely due to the length of this knife being a little bit longer than the other two. But with all of those things said, I would be stoked with any of these three knives cutting carrots, but if I had my choice, I'd go Minamo. Bell pepper, again, we had a very close race here. I'll start again by talking about the Minamo. Really, really beautiful cutting feel on this guy. Bell peppers, as you guys I'm sure are aware, the skin can be a little bit troublesome to get through, especially if your knife is not like super, super sharp. This guy obviously was crazy sharp because it went through effortlessly, both when the skin was up and when the skin was down, didn't seem to matter. Push, pull, didn't seem to matter. Stack two on top, didn't matter. This guy's going right through, so was really happy with that. The Nigara similarly performed very, very well, just not quite, again, to the same level as the Minamo. Push cut, pull cut felt really nice. Skin up, skin down felt really nice. When we were rocking, felt really nice. I alluded to this at the beginning of the video. This guy had the most belly on it, so I did find when we were cutting appropriately sized things with this knife, the rocking was the most pleasurable with the Nigara. So yeah, really happy there. Hayabusa performed really, really well. I don't know what it is, but it just didn't have the same feel to me as the other two knives. Again, if I were only testing this knife out and not comparing it to the other two, I probably would have only really nice things to say about this guy. And it did perform really well, but just in comparison to the other two, it was a little lacking for me. So after the bell pepper test, I'm giving it to the Minamo once again. Last but certainly not least was the onion test. And this test is great because it tells us a good amount about the blade geometry at the tip and at the heel. When julienning, I found the Minamo was fantastic. When doing our dice, it felt really nice as well. I have nothing bad to say about this knife. When cutting onions, it was really a pleasure to use. Next, the Nigara. This guy performed super well at the onions as well. Once again, if I was comparing it to itself and nothing else, I would probably have nothing but nice things to say about this knife. But in comparison to the Minamo, it just wasn't quite at the same level. We're like Minamo here, like Nigara like right there. Where I really loved this knife though was the tip of the knife. It felt really, really effortless going through. I also like, being that it's a longer, more gradual sort of, transition from tip into the spine here, I felt like it was really easy to get all the way to the root of the onion without trying so hard. So that was really nice. But again, it just didn't quite have the same cutting feel as the Minamo. Very, very close. And again, if I was comparing it to itself, exceptional knife, just the Minamo's something very special. Okay, last but not least again is the Hayabusa for the onions. Once again, felt really, really nice. Tip didn't impact the dicing of the onion as much as it did on the carrot here, but I definitely did not feel as though it was performing quite as well as the other two knives in this regard. Once again though, once I was doing the up and down chopping on the dice and the up and down on the julienne, this guy performed really, really well. The blade geometry back here at the heel is really nice on this knife, and that added length did help a little bit, but I have to once again give the edge to the Minamo on the onion test. So after our three tests, bell pepper, carrot, and onion, all three went to the Minamo. So that is your winner of today's episode of the Battle of the Blades. Pew, pew, pew. Next prize we have to give away is the best bang for your buck knife, and that's gonna go to the Nigara. Not only is this knife exceptionally beautiful, if not the most beautiful of the three knives that we have here, it still performed at a very high level. It's about half the price as the Minamo, and you're getting about 85 to 90% of the performance there. So, if the Minamo is just a little bit out of your price range, you're still getting a fantastic, fantastic knife with the Nigara. It performed really well at the tip stuff. It's got a nice belly on it, so you can do a lot of rocking with it. So we still highly recommend this knife and best bang for your buck. Final prize we have to give away is Chopper's Delight, and that's gonna go to the Hayabusa. This guy performed really, really well. Anything to do with like that up and down chopping motion, this guy was awesome. The blade geometry towards the heel of the knife was exceptional on this guy. So if you're one to use more of a push or pull up and down chopping motion, the Hayabusa is for you. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Battle of the Blades. Let us know in the comment section down below what you thought about our tests. If you have any vegetables that you think would shine a light on how these knives perform a little bit better than the 3 we chose. And let us know down below if you used any of these knives and which one you would choose. Stay sharp.